Good morning and welcome to Today in L.A. My name's Mike Amos. With me this morning, of course, Bill Rice Jr. And Bill, you stand awfully tall. You're 6'6.5", or how tall are you?
I'm 6'2".
Boy, I tell you what, for some reason, either I'm low or you high, one or the other.
I've got a high sitting chair.
And of course, we appreciate Bill coming on this morning. And old Troy comes from the Chapman family, the Chapman Rice family. The Rices, did they come out of Prattville, or where did they come out of?
My grandfather came out of Prattville. The Rices.
How tall was he?
6'4".
That was real tall back then, wasn't it?
Bob Rice, he worked for the highway department. And then my grandmother's from North Carolina. Her daddy was a sheriff in a county in North Carolina. If you remember the Irvin, in the Watergate hearings, the congressman that was so prominent, the folksy congressman, I believe his last name was Irvin.
Yeah.
He was from the same county as my grandmother, and when my great-grandfather died, he came to the funeral.
Yeah, okay.
I think so.
How did your mother get up with the Rice bunch?
Well, you know, Dad was lucky to get up with Marshall Chapman. He moved to Troy in 4th grade, and
he was a big. I bet he was a big 4th grader too, wasn't he?
I guess so. He's always been tall.
How tall was your dad?
He was 6'5", I believe.
Yeah, 6'5". Yeah, that was really considered tall too.
But he was in the class with my mom. They were classmates, but they never dated in high school.
Oh, really?
They ran in the same group and were friends, but they started dating maybe about the time they graduated, or in the summer after they graduated. And Mom went to Florida State, and Dad went to Alabama, and they had a long distance romance. And after a year at Florida State, Mom transferred to Alabama, and then they were an item.
Well, and of course, Bill Rice later on starred at the University of Alabama and was on the 1961 national championship team. Those guys out of college, a lot of them are still around. Of course, you know, we lost your dad, but of course, Jerry Hollis is now living in Troy. Tom Murphy,
he was
one of those guys,
quarterback on the football team.
And of course, those two went to VMI. And then Bobby Howard, who lives in Birmingham, he went to VMI. And the late Dr.
Buddy
Brantley also went to VMI, and my good friend Ed married Carla Colley. Ed Telfair also went to VMI.
Wow, what a pipeline!
And then what did I find out later yesterday when we were walking around the square and having a good time? Walked in. Bill Chapman's old office, and we sat there and started talking, and
Joel Williams?
Hank McLeod went to VMI. Is that right?
Did Joel tell us that? Joel knows his stuff.
Went to VMI, and what I'm saying, that is a lot of folks going to Virginia Military Institute, and I want to call it Lexington, Virginia.
I wonder who started that, or what's the origin story of why there were so many people from Troy. Must have been some of their parents or uncles must have gone there.
Well, I mean, and for especially this, you know, I didn't know until recently that Jerry Hollis, Dr. Jerry Hollis, who's an eye doctor, has moved back to Troy, and he moved into the old lawyer's house. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, you told me the house.
I know, but a lawyer built that house. And that was, and I'll think about it.
Lawyers have built a lot of houses.
I'll remember that in a few moments. But we're glad to have Jerry and Patsy back in Troy, and they're wonderful people. They love to bop. And
but nobody loves to bop more than you.
That's right. But Troy's a good town if you love to bop. Of course, your daddy was a bopper, and Mama was a bopper.
I think you're right. It had to do with that teenage canteen.
That's right, that teenage canteen.
And everybody passed time bopping.
And the hangout at the beach. You know, they would go down to the beach. I'm sure you heard stories your mama used to tell. And now, who did she run around with? Now, that that's still around Troy?
Well, she's Eleanor Herlong.
All right. Yeah, of course, the
Miss
late Eleanor Hurlon, yeah.
And then Mimi
Herlong.
McKinnon and Bitsy
Mimi.
Murphy and
She lived in Birmingham.
yeah, and then her friend, her next door neighbor that lived in the Boatner house that Dr. Long lives in now.
Okay, that was
Her name escapes me now.
the doctor's daughter or granddaughter?
I think her father was a banker.
Oh, okay, that was Boatner.
Oh, but I'm gonna leave off a lot of people. They had a great crowd.
That was the old Boatner house, the house that Dr. Long lived in. That's a beautiful home, isn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, Dr. Johnny Long.
And then
lived
a
there
couple
for
years,
a long time.
2 years younger than my mom was Bebe Hendricks.
Head.
Bebe Head.
That's right. And Camille Head, I think, was a year older than Bebe, so they might have been the same class. But
You know,
a
my
sharp
mom's
bunch of
cousin,
girls.
Brother Chapman, I think was a year older than them. His sister, Ann, might have been a couple years older.
She lived in Birmingham, I think.
Yeah, you know what her claim to fame is? Or my claim to fame, really? She is the aunt of the actress Courtney Cox
Are you serious?
from Mountain Brook.
Are you serious?
Through marriage, she married her name is now Ann Cox.
Yeah. Courtney Cox.
So
That's right.
her husband is Courtney Cox's uncle.
Yeah.
And so if she's my first cousin once removed, that means that I am kin to Courtney Cox.
All right. Now I'm gonna throw something out, and if somebody's listening, Jim O'Neill, or somebody's listening that might know, Courtney Cox and Doug Layton, the announcer, are related. The football announcer. Thank you, Doug Layton, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Is that right?
Have you ever heard that?
I've never heard that.
For some reason, some unfound reason, I think Doug Layton was related to the Courtney Cox. Of course, she's from Birmingham.
She's
is that
from
right?
Mountain Brook, and she's
Yeah.
a year older than me. And so I actually had several fraternity brothers from Mountain Brook, and they all went to high school with Courtney Cox.
And of course, they were all a bunch of yuppies. Is that right?
Oh man,
Are they a bunch of yuppies today?
they were all driving BMWs.
Yeah, that's right. Now
They weren't like me.
Now Mark Tyson, Coach Bryant's grandson, was he your age?
He's 2 years older than me.
All right. Now, one of the guys from right here in Troy, well, of course, we're getting a phone call in here. It could be they're not picking up. Mike's not getting a call this morning. We'll check on this. Good morning. How you doing? Hello. Well, we'll get that through here in a minute. Mike Amos is trying to get through. But, of course, we're talking everything.
Well, everybody has some story about how
what you're interested in.
3 degrees of separation. You know, we can all claim somebody famous in our line. That's the best I can do.
Yeah, no question about it. The line.
Now, what about you? Who are you kin to?
Well, I was, I was born and raised on downtown Orion Street, which led up to, let's go to our phones here. Good morning, you're on Today in L.A. How you doing?
Hey, morning.
I was, my heritage, most of it, my grandmother came out of the Revel family. My name is Michael Revel Amos, and they came out of the Revel. My grandmother was a Revel from Goshen, and then came up through those ranks. And my daddy, most of his folks were raised around Coffee County, Alabama, and Goshen, Alabama. And then, of course, my daddy went to Troy High School, and he and some of his friends that run around with.
What year did he graduate from Troy High School?
Gosh, that would be awfully hard. He was born in 1911.
So he would have graduated in about 1929, 30.
Yeah.
About the time when the stock market crashed and the Depression hit.
Stumpy Fields played on that football team. My daddy played on that football team at Troy High School. I'm trying to think of some other people. Lewis Head, Bebe's daddy, played on that team. I want to say that the Starlings, Vicky Starling's daddy played on that team. It was several. and maybe well, I could maybe think of a few more, but well, we were raised over there on Orion Street. My grandmother lived on Sun Street, which is, you know where Sun Street is?
I've been down it.
You go up Trojan Terrace, from 231. It's the first road on the right, Sun Street. Jerry Renfro lived there on Sun Street.
So
Trojan Samuel Frederick, and those names sound familiar.
That used to be the main drag into town.
Merle Barron, Dr. Merle Barron was raised right there on Sun Street, and Mom and Daddy had a garden there every year, and of course all of Orion Street and
why is it called Trojan Terrace?
Well, that's what they called it.
The developer.
The main business on Trojan Terrace, that was back before they built the bypass. It was 231 that came right up the hill, Deer Stand Hill, and it was what Troy was called at one time. Mike, you on the line?
Yeah, I'm on.
You're having a good time this morning, and of course they call it Deer Stand Hill, but it was that was the entranceway. You can see the old columns there, which was the entranceway. He lives right there at the entrance of old of that area. But what I'm saying, the Ingrams had a truck stop and restaurant right there on top of the hill in Trojan Terrace, and they advertised it on the movies and everything. And boy, that made that food look good. And my dad many times took us up there to have lunch. Old Ingram's Cafe, which that's where it started. And Grady Ingram ran that for a long time. Then beyond that was Smith Brothers body shop, and there were just a few businesses there. There was also a candy company. Hobbs Candy Company was located there, and then right down on also it was Bob's Barbecue Restaurant was right on the corner there. I can just remember those things. And then right up the street from me, there were two grocery stores. One of them was Ivy Grocery, and the other one was Davis Grocery. You heard me answer this phone, Dave's Grocery. Well, that's the way Mr. Sheldon Davis used to answer his phone, and I'd be a little boy sitting up there listening to him talk, and I can remember a bunch of times my mother said, run up to Mr. Davis's and get some pimento loaf or some bologna, and boy, I was just as excited about bologna as you would be excited about a big steak.
You could probably charge it, couldn't you?
Exactly, you did charge it, and of course Ivy was right across the street. You either went to Ivy's or you either went to Sheldon Davis's store, and I always went to Sheldon Davis's.
Let me ask you this, Mike. Did any of the grocery stores deliver?
No, they used to. Downtown, they used to have on the square, or just off the square, right across from the First Methodist Church, that grocery store used to deliver.
I'm just commenting on how things go full circle. Now, grocery store delivery is the big thing, but it was commonplace in earlier decades.
Yeah. And my telephone number was 644W.
Is that right?
That was my telephone number, and most everybody can remember their telephone number. And but the reason I like Mr. Davis, of course, they live right across the street from me. But they were great people, and his daughter and I were the same age, and his wife's name was Conradine. And I still call my wife sometimes Conradine. I'm a names guy. You ever heard me say the word Conradine, Mike?
Yeah, maybe a few times.
But we were excited about that bologna, and when we get that bologna, we'd bring it home, and we'd cut the edges so it wouldn't bubble up. Have you ever fried bologna?
No.
Boy,
I'm not a big bologna fan.
Shame on you.
I know.
We thought we were.
Does anybody really eat bologna by choice?
I don't know if I've ever fried anything.
Hey, let me tell you something. I still eat a bologna.
I never ate bologna by choice. I probably was forced to eat it when I was a kid.
No,
I've eaten a lot of Vienna sausages.
I still eat a bologna sandwich or anything. But what you do is you cut the edges so it wouldn't bubble up, and you fry it. You'd have a fried bologna sandwich.
Yeah, I've heard.
And then maybe put a little cheese on it or whatever. And Mike, I was just excited as I could be to get some pimento loaf, and I'd watch him shave it. He'd put it on that machine and he'd shave it, and he'd package it, and he would package it up, and I'd run home and we'd eat supper.
Yeah, well, let's skip forward to the 70s, the mid 70s. And we didn't have situations like that in Opelika where I lived, but I can remember after school, the moms want the kids out of the house. And so they, normally we were out playing football or something.
Yeah.
But I can remember sometimes she would give us $1, and we had a Mr. Quick store, which is like a 7-Eleven,
Yeah.
about a mile away from our house. Had to walk through the woods
Yeah.
to get there. But she'd just give us $1 and say, go. And then the whole neighborhood would just walk to Mr. Quick.
Yeah.
But what I'm thinking about today is how much candy you could get for that $1.
Yeah, no question about it.
You could fill up a bag.
My favorite thing was a bag of Tom's Toasted Peanuts and a Pepsi Cola. And the reason I said Pepsi, because the Pepsi Cola was bigger than a Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola was like this. Later on it got taller. They had to stay in business, but at one time it was just a small bottle. What was significant about that small bottle?
The Coca-Cola bottle?
Yeah, the Coca-Cola bottle.
My grandmother used to love the little
At the
6.5 ounce ones.
at the bottom of it was the name of a tank.
That's right. I remember
That's
those.
where that
Was bottled.
Was originally bottled, and we used to sort of have a contest on who was the furthest. Sometimes you see New York City.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you see Washington D.C. But
And you can
a lot of
return
times
those
you'd
bottles
see
and
Troy,
get
Alabama,
some money back.
Yeah, and of course that's right. People used to sell the bottles, save the bottles and get 2 cents for a bottle.
Yeah.
It seemed like
So they were
like that.
recycling back then.
Yeah, but back then was also the day of the candy bar. All right, the candy bars that are still existent today that were not that were also big back then. One of them was a Snicker.
Okay.
And I reckon you could call it Milky Way. Milky Way was big back then.
It's still big.
Milky Way. Almond Joy, you didn't see as much Almond Joy. You saw Mounds a lot back then.
Hershey bar?
You saw a Hershey bar. Yeah, it was there. And I'll tell you about the Hershey concept in a minute. It was big then, but it was a small candy bar because you didn't buy it because it ran out too quick. But you had a Three Musketeer that's still pretty famous, and you had a Baby Ruth.
Baby Ruth.
Baby Ruth was big back then. Butternut was big then. It's not big now. Hollywood candy bar was fairly big back then. It was dark chocolate.
The one I loved growing up was the Nestle's Crunch Bar, but they didn't have that.
Well, I don't remember Nestle's Crunch Bar, but of course, all these candy bars were a nickel, or 6 cents, or whatever. But back to the Tom's Toasted Peanuts, if I had got a Pepsi Cola, and that's what was my favorite drink when I was a kid because it was bigger, I'd pour those peanuts in that drink. I still do that. Do you ever pour peanuts in a drink?
No, but I know that a lot of people
Try
do.
that sometimes, and let me tell you, that cost 6 cents and maybe a dime, or probably 15 cents. You could buy both, and I was in hog heaven with a little old bag of Tom's Toasted Peanuts.
Well, this is a good point to
And the reason Tom's was better than Lance, and you had potato chips, you had Golden Flake, you had Tom's cookies, and the little butter crackers, peanut butter crackers, whatever. That was also big, but Golden Flake came into popularity, and of course back then it was Golden Flake or Tom's or Lance had a potato chip, and you had trucks and people worked on
founded
it.
by a family from
Birmingham, from
Troy,
Troy, Alabama. That's right. And of course, exactly, Sloan Bashinsky went to Birmingham and started Golden Flake potato chips, and his grandmother, Miss Bashinsky, lived on the corner of West College Street, and that house is still the most beautiful home in Troy, wouldn't you say?
Yep.
And with the big, huge antebellum columns and so forth.
The Hendricks bought that house and really
They
fixed
sure
it
did.
up.
And see, only somebody like Hendricks could afford to live in a house like that because he owned a hardware company and a building supply, and of course they made it beautiful. And I'm sure Bebe, who lives now in Fairhope, would probably they remember some fond moments in that home.
It was beautiful. I think I was still living here when they
My
bought it and
wife,
fixed it up.
Carol, and Mike's mother was raised down the street on the corner of that Tudor home there, right across from and then right across the street from her, or catty corner across the street from her, was Jacqueline Brantley, Dr. Brantley's daughter. To the left was the Lawrence's, Ann. You remember Ann Ballinger, Ann Lawrence lived right there on that corner, and then the Dotsons lived right across the street in that two-story home right across the street. And to the left of where my wife lived was the Blumentritt. Dr. Blumentritt was born and raised right there. And then you had the Episcopal Church right there on the corner, and then the Bashinsky house.
I think Mike could name who lived in half of the houses of Troy.
Well, you know, the Tudor, Roy Crow bought the Tudor house, and let me tell you the quick story about that house. And of course, that's a big house. The Pattersons live there now.
Yeah.
And but my wife was born and raised there, and so forth. The Bashinsky, Miss Bashinsky, built that house for her son.
Mm-hmm.
To move to Troy and live in that Tudor home, big beautiful Tudor home, you know, on the corner there.
Yeah.
And but his wife didn't like Troy, so she turned around and sold it. I think he bought it from her, and that's where they live.
Well, what did the wife do? Did the wife leave?
No, they went back to Birmingham. You know, all that Bashinsky family in Birmingham, you know, starts right here in Troy.
I have started a column on the most famous people that come from Troy. You know, one person that came from Troy was Coach Bryant's wife.
That's right.
She lived in Troy until I think she was 10 years old.
That's right.
Then she moved to Birmingham,
Yeah,
but she considered Troy home.
And her sister lived here for years, and you know, and a lot of that family started out in I want to say in Banks. Some of it came out of Banks, but what was Coach Bryant's wife's name? Mary
Harmon.
Mary Harmon Bryant. Annie Harmon taught you in school, didn't she, Mike?
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
I don't remember Miss Harmon. What
Miss
grade
Annie
was that,
Harmon,
man?
and Annie Harmon was the sister of Mary Harmon. Mary Harmon Bryant, and I'll tell you another little story. And of course, you know when Charlie Bradshaw moved here to coach football back in, I reckon it was the mid '70s or something like that.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, little Charlie was one of your best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they built a beautiful home up on Crow Hill.
I know the story you're going to tell.
We used to get a lot of mail, and it was Martha Bradshaw used to say,
Put on her return address?
No, she would say Crow Hill. She said, you know, kept saying Crow Hill to these folks. So before long, they were saying Martha Bradshaw Crow Hill. Well, the mailman knew that we developed that street, so he started sending those letters to us. And,
so Martha
and then I
coined
looked at
the
one
name
closely.
Crow Hill.
I looked at one closely, and it was Paul Bryant, whoever that guy was. But what I'm saying, you know, she
was best friends with Mary Harmon Bryant.
She's the one that named Crow Hill. She kept, you know, always saying. Crow
She knows
Hill.
all the real stories about Coach Bryant. And, but
classy lady, wonderful lady, and of course, little Charles used to come swimming in our pool down there. You know,
when I moved to Troy, Charles became the first guy that kind of took me under his wing because our families knew each other from his dad had coached my dad at Alabama, and so now Charles is my friend. So now it's my social anxiety goes down a little bit. But I remember visiting his house on Crow's Hill, and you know, it was only about 10 houses at that time.
Yeah, at that time we built
but
one street at a time.
He took me down to your house to go.
That's right, to go swimming.
To go swimming.
Yeah. Oh, my mother-in-law, Beulah Crow, that was her name, Beulah, and everybody knew her, and she loved little Charlie. And he was such a fine little guy, and she'd give him different jobs to do. They weren't very hard, and
I love that neighborhood. You could go and. I remember one time we were there and it poured down rain, and then as soon as the rain stopped, we went down to the golf course, the college golf course, and that creek was like the raging Colorado River.
Mike, you know all about these things, don't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's
So
what
we jumped in the creek, and the water would just take us down.
You remember when that creek would would overflow down there?
Yeah, I mean, I went down there with 2 socks, and I'd come back full of golf balls. I did that probably about at least once a week.
Yeah, that was sort of a
I
thing.
guess
Apparently nobody in Troy that played at the university course could play golf because all the balls were in the woods.
Yeah, Yeah. All
Well,
right,
you
the
got a lot
water-
of my golf balls, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you how he cheated. Now, we used to have a contest. We'd take a white sock and we'd leave and walk down there to the golf course and start finding balls. And whoever found the most won. It's competitive. Well, I didn't know he was going to go out in the pond and wade out there and feel him by his feet. How many times you walked in there? And he would come back with 3 or 4 dozen golf balls, and I'd have maybe 6 or 7. But we used to have a lot of fun picking up balls.
And being walking distance to Troy University growing up was pretty fun for a young kid.
Yeah, it
you could
was.
just go anywhere.
I would go in the summer, and I think about it. I would go, and I would take a football, a basketball, and I think a baseball,
That's
and
right.
sometimes a tennis racket, and I would play all of them. And I would play a little football, then we'd sneak in Sartain Hall and play some basketball. I'd hit some tennis balls
That's
against
right.
that wall.
Well, you're exactly right.
And then we'd go finish up and rest and chill out at the Adams Center.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the perfect
That's
place
right.
to.
Yeah.
Oh, and then we'd play golf at the golf course
That's
too.
right. Well, another thing that
Adams Center was our glorified hangout. I felt bad for, we were like a bunch of little 8th graders in there running around like we owned the place.
That's
Yeah.
the same
Oh,
with,
yeah.
with me, Michael. Yeah.
and people had a lot of fun over there, no question. But that tennis, that wall that you said you hit tennis, my daughter Rebecca hates that they tore that down. But where you could go and practice hitting a tennis, it was a handball court.
Yeah,
And you practice hitting tennis balls.
And there was
That's how people learn how to play. Really.
there was a basketball goal right next to it, so you could shoot some basketball.
right.
Then you could go and hit some tennis balls.
And what was the smart thing about that basketball court, Mike? You remember?
It had chain nets.
This guy knows it all. It had chain nets. Those nets never wore out. They were made out of chain. When's the last time you seen a chain net basketball goal?
No,
But that's
right.
what they did, and
We used to always go up and play at the Wesley Foundation when I was growing up too.
Yeah.
They had
You know-
those outside courts.
What we used to do is we would sneak. We figured out how to get in Sartain Hall. It had a chain on the door, but some skinny person could slide in and then get in and then go open the door somewhere else. So we would play in
Yeah.
Sartain Hall.
Did you ever go to the hut and get a hamburger? Was the hut open back then?
Well, let me finish my story. I'll forget my train
go
of
ahead.
thought if I don't finish my stories. So that was fun, playing those 3-on-3 or 5-on-5 games in Sartain Hall. Well, I've recently become real interested in Pete Maravich and watched some
Oh, yeah.
documentaries on his life and read his great biography on him. And Maravich would do the same thing.
Oh,
His
yeah.
dad was a college basketball coach, but he still had the cheek.
That's right.
They had to break in the gym, and they would just play in the college gym all
A lot
day.
of times he did it by himself. He threw the ball against the wall. He threw it overhanded, all that, and he had those sloppy socks and everything. And he was just a great player, but he threw the ball up against the wall. Especially, he'd throw it up against the wall, he'd come back to him, then he'd shoot it,
He dribbled. While somebody was driving the car, he would have the door open and be dribbling.
Exactly
He'd go
right.
to the movie theater and be dribbling while he was watching the movie.
No question about it. Of course, it was, Troy was a great place to grow up. Now, where you grew up in Hillcrest now, y'all were sort of uppity over there. You lived in Hillcrest. You lived in a brick house. That meant that you were rich. Is that right?
That's what you keep telling me. I don't know about
My
that.
son, well, I'm just being facetious, but we used to joke with each other that he lived in a brick house up in Hillcrest, and of course it's still a very nice place to live.
Well-
Where you live now, isn't that right?
I call it Old Troy, and I just like the trees.
Yeah,
I
and
like the
it-
shade.
That's where Dr. Barry Crow was raised.
That's right. Exactly, Dr. Barry Crow and
Well,
And
but-
the commercial tycoon, real estate mogul, Blake Crow.
Blake Crow. That's right.
I did a story once on all the neighborhoods of Troy and who developed them.
And his uncle Darrell Crow from Troy owns
Yeah,
perhaps the largest house in Mountain Brook.
Brook.
He's up on the mountain. Have you ever?
It only took 5 years to build.
Yeah, and he is from Troy.
Does he
Alabama,
still have
Dr.
that real
Darrell
nice
Crow.
lake house at Lake Martin?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, exactly right. Had a huge house right next to Scrooge, I think. Wasn't he, Mike, at one time?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
pretty
Yeah,
close.
Scrooge used to do the huge fireworks
Yeah,
show,
and have
and
it-
I remember hearing stories about it.
Yeah, no question about
Crucey
it.
didn't do that. That was the Blunts that did the
The
fireworks.
Yeah,
but
everybody could see it from everybody's house. So I
Mom
think.
and Dad had a place at Lake Martin near the Hendricks for a long time, but when anybody visited, you had to take them by Scrushy's house. You had to get in the pond because then it was ostentatious, man. I mean,
right.
or some would say beautiful.
And Scrushy, the smartest thing that Troy University ever did, in my opinion, was put Scrushy on the board of trustees. And when it came time to go to Division 1A, he raised his hand and he says, "I'll give you $1 million."
You told me that story though. That was.
His wife was a Troy graduate, though.
That's right. His wife was a Troy graduate, and he was raised in Pike County around Raymer, that area. And
Scrushy was.
Played in a band. He played in a band growing up and so forth. Those are just a few little.
A lot of people don't realize Scrushy tried to start a country music career too. He actually had a few country songs.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, he played in a band and so forth. Of course, it's a lot of things. A lot of people I could do the same thing in Luverne.
Who are some of the other famous people that grew up in Troy?
Well, Douglas Edwards. A lot of people talk about him. He was CBS's top.
He was the first television news anchor. Period.
Cronkite. I think Cronkite.
He was before
worked
Cronkite.
for him.
Cronkite succeeded Douglas Edwards. So every afternoon, it was only a 15-minute show, I think, at the beginning. Every American who had a TV, this would have been in the early mid-50s, would watch Douglas Edwards. He was a household name, so I would say, without a doubt, nobody of my generation remembers Douglas Edwards today, but during his day, he was incredibly famous.
Well, and also another.
A lot of people say the great civil rights leader and Congressman John Lewis is from Troy. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Troy, Brundage area.
He's from Brundage Banks area.
Yeah, that's right. But he tells people he's from Troy. We'll take it.
John Lewis, he's high on everybody that follows politics in the civil rights movement knows who John Lewis is.
The most famous football player that ever come out of Troy had to have been Bobby Marlowe. He was a great one, and of course later on Brundage had a few pretty good ones that came out of Brundage. And
Cornelius Griffin.
The most famous baseball player is Brian Meadows.
Brian Meadows played in the major leagues. He's the only major leaguer. Well, no, there's one from Goshen too, Mike.
Well, I mean, we're talking about Troy.
I know it.
Grew up and went, Troy schools.
But we want to also mention a young man from Goshen played in
the kid from Goshen was Wesley Wright.
Wesley Wright, that's right.
I think Brian Meadows is the only Trojan I know that played in a major league professional sport. Bobby Marlowe played in.
No doubt, it's not even close. I don't even know anybody even made it AA.
I'm talking about all sports.
Yeah.
Did NBA, make it AA?
Baseball, football. Marlowe played in the Canadian Football League. Nobody's come close to playing in the NBA.
That's right.
What about Drake, though? Did he make it into AA in the minor leagues?
No, Sam Drake played minor league ball. Of course, he was a great college player. He played at Georgia Tech and was a great. And they call him man. He was an outstanding college player, and he played some. I think he hurt his arm, and he had to.
He's Bobby, my little brother Bobby's real close friend, and so he made it. What they call it, high A ball. And he played for probably 2 or 3 years, and then he. At some point when you do that, you got to make a decision. Am I going to keep riding these buses, or am I going to?
And then he became a stockbroker, didn't he?
A very successful stockbroker.
Married a cheerleader from Clemson, and I don't. Of course, I don't know the whole story about all of that. But his daddy was one of my dear friends. And he said, "Glory!" We'll be back in just a moment.
Have you seen an increase in your insurance premiums or significant change in your insurance coverage? Let Sandbeck Insurance offer you a better plan to suit your business or personal needs. Sandbeck Insurance offers many lines of insurance, whether it's home, farm, or auto insurance, work comp, business, or health and life policies. Sandbeck is here for you. Call or visit our Troy, Enterprise, or Andalusia office today. Sandbeck Insurance, where we take pride in taking care of your insurance needs.
Trojan Auto Parts of Troy, home of Napa Know-How. Stop by and see owners Mike and Melissa Kilcrease and their Napa Know-How team with over 100 years of combined experience. We're the only locally owned parts store in Pike County, and we're fully stocked and ready to serve you. We pride ourselves on being your go-to parts store, not only for the simple items, but we specialize in those hard-to-find items as well. Trojan Auto Parts, the right part at the right price at the right time. Napa, a name you've trusted here in Troy since 1945.
A personal touch, a high level of trust. Whether it's checking and savings accounts, personal or business loans, or our local friendly service. That's what Troy Bank and Trust customers expect. But now we offer more. Free identity theft protection for our new and existing customers, protecting your family's time, money, and good name from identity theft. Because protecting your identity is now a big part of our identity.
Hey folks, are you tired of spending hard-earned money on a gas grill only to have it burn up in less than 2 years? Not to mention burning your food. Here at Southern Grill and Patio in Troy, Alabama, we carry the Holland Grill line. They've been around since 1988, and there are people right here in Troy that have had theirs for over 20 years. These grills are guaranteed not to flare up. You can grill, steam, or smoke on your new Holland Grill today. Come see us at Southern Grill and Patio in Troy, Alabama, inside Town and Country Flooring Center.
Buddy, I tell you what, my good friend Scott and Lana Hartley, great friends. Have you tried one of those grills? You know, they've got what is equivalent, Mike, to the green egg, and they carry that one, and they say that is just what people tell me. It's hands over better than the green egg.
How about that?
Is that grill?
I'm going to get one day.
They've got the best grills. It's like a Mercedes of grills, you know. And I shouldn't say that either. Shut up, because Ford F-150 is pretty good truck, isn't it? And then of course we've got great cars and trucks over at Premier Dodge Chrysler Jeep, and what a great thing.
Speaking of Mercedes, Nick Saban's is already back to work 2 days after hip replacement surgery. There's a picture of him at his office yesterday. So
it is unreal.
I guess he's already back at it.
I heard a little story recently about, how you consider things that are that's a tax base. There was something going on over, we were talking, the topic was tax base, and they got in a big argument over where they were going to put that Mercedes dealership, Mike, whether it was going to be in one little community and another community. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, it's in Irondale where all the other car dealerships
That's right,
are.
And there was a real big fuss over who was going to get that tax money, out of there, and it was really quite a war, because across the interstate was, what would that be, Mountain Brook or where?
No, I mean, it's Irondale on both sides of the road.
Okay.
Doesn't Saban own 2 dealerships?
Yeah, he's got one in Nashville and one in Irondale.
But I'll tell you what he hasn't done yet, and I will say that Jason, my good friend over at Premier Dodge Chrysler Jeep in Troy, he's already, since he's been back to Troy and he moved here from Jason Gregory's, that name Gregory is a household name in Columbus, Georgia, in the car dealerships, and he came over to Troy, and since he's been in Troy, he's given $70,000 cash money back to our schools. He just recently gave Pike County Elementary $14,000. What he does, every time he sells a new car, he puts $200 away and goes back and gives that money to the county schools.
Well, how about that? That's
city,
great of him.
All the elementary programs in Pike County, the city and county. So, Jason, if you're listening this morning, thank you for coming to Troy, Alabama. One thing, I asked him, I said, why did you come to Troy? Of course, his dad just sold something like 14 car dealerships and for an unbelievable amount of money. Talking right out of $1 billion, in that neighborhood. And he said, well, I had to get to a town. I wanted my own dealership, Jason said. And he said I had to get to a town that was outside of the competition. So he had to sign an agreement, to be outside.
A non-compete, yeah.
Non-compete, and Troy was outside that line, and he jumped all over it, and he loves it. Loves Troy. His kids in school here, and they lived in a nice area, and he's just happy as a lark, Mike.
That's a great story.
Of course, he's involved with Troy University already too, giving back to Troy University, and that's wonderful what his dealership's done.
I've always thought that people give tons of money to colleges, which is great. I'm all for that. But I've always wondered why people don't ever give money to their high schools or their junior highs, where really more of their formative years were spent.
Yeah. I want to mention, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be coming to you live at 4:30 today with Pike Liberal Arts playing host to Fort Dale. Pike Liberal under Coach Alan Ponder is 20-10, and of course their big rival Fort Dale is 10-11. That game is going to be a double header in the second round of the Class 3A Alabama Independent Schools. Pike Liberal is the defending
so one
champion.
team's 20-10, one team's 10-11.
Yeah, but let me tell you, this is 3A baseball, and Pike won the state championship last year.
I know it.
We took our cameras to Tuscaloosa, brought those games live, and then we went to Montgomery for the championship.
Pike Liberal is best known for its baseball program.
They really have a great baseball program, and Coach Alan Pond has done a great job. Yeah, there's some other teams.
Troy's just a crazy baseball town. I've never seen anything like it. Like,
exactly.
literally, that changed. Like,
I really believe that there are people that have moved here in the last few years because of the baseball program, the rec program. I've heard that numerous times. I ran into, I was eating at a restaurant this week, and a guy came by, and his daughter had a Charles Simpson shirt on, and I said, where y'all, tell me about your daughter. He said, well, she's in the 9th grade. She's a starting shortstop. And you could just look at her and tell she's a good player. And I said, well, where are you from? He said, well, I'm from up north of Pike County. Now, in Troy, if you live outside the jurisdictions, you can pay a certain amount of money and go to school at Charles Simpson High School.
There are.
Did you know that they do
well,
that
there's
now?
5 students from Pike Road, where I used to live, that go to Charles Simpson High School. 4 or 5.
And they have to pay a certain amount to do that. But his daughter's going to be a great player, and they're originally from the Union Springs area.
Good. I mean, we were talking about this off the air yesterday. Any extracurricular program that you can develop that gives people a reason to want to be a part of that program is outstanding.
Let me tell you,
the
right?
band program,
That's
the
right.
softball program, baseball program, football program, debate program, whatever it is.
And of course, the theater program has really done great things. In fact, the lead of Mamma Mia, I reckon that's properly pronounced. She was a Leverett kid from a former Charles Simpson kid.
That's what you told me.
You're a
She did a
freshman, and
fantastic
And
job.
I'm still hearing unbelievable comments about how good that performance was. And Tori Lee, a local girl from Brundage, Alabama, is the head of the theater program here in Troy. And they're building, let me tell you what I was told. There are 100 kids in Troy University's dance program now. Troy University is building a big-time dance program. Like what other school, Mike, have you ever heard me say that was big in dance? If you get this, I'm going to fall out my chair.
Jacksonville State, I don't know.
No, not Jacksonville State. They just got those ballerinas, which are good. And I wouldn't mind seeing
Southern Miss?
No, not Southern Miss, but SMU. Southern Methodist University is a big school for ballet. But Troy is getting to be big in ballet, and I asked them. I said, "Well, how about those dancers in the band?" They said, "Well, they're not in our program." So their dancers are more of a ballet type program, and a lot of kids are coming to here on scholarship in this dance program, which I think is wonderful.
I do too.
And something that Bill and I were talking about, Mike. I wish, and right now there's less than 100 kids in the Charles Simpson High School band. I wish there was 200. Enterprise marches 250, 300. Of course, that's a real big school. But, if for the right motivations and of having a good time and having fun, I believe you could increase the enrollment of the Charles Simpson band. Wouldn't it be nice to march 150 or 200 kids?
Yes.
You know, one of the great things about that would be Their mamas and their daddies are going to come to the football games. Their aunts and their uncles, their grandmamas and their granddaddies, their brothers and their sisters, their cousins and their good friends.
You know,
They would bring 10, 15 to maybe even 50.
we talk about
people with them.
sports all the time on this program, but think about the role that the Troy University Sounds of the South marching band played in the development of the university. One of the key decisions Dr. Adams ever made was bringing Johnny Long in.
Yeah.
And you talk about the band was always big and it was great. And it toured all over the South and the country as basically an ambassador of the university.
Exactly.
But I never really thought about it. That all of the parents and the brothers and sisters come to the ball game to watch their kids
That's right.
perform. And then, a huge percentage of them became band directors in high schools.
Yeah.
And then had a great influence on their students at those high schools and sent no telling how many students to Troy University through the thousands and thousands and thousands because of the band program.
Well, let me say this. I've done this 100 times or more. Troy is very unique, and maybe Jacksonville State might be in this category, but not many more are. Troy takes such great pride in their marching band. Of course, Troy, another thing that's very important that we don't promote that we should, Troy University is the home of the National Bandmasters Hall of Fame, located on Troy's campus. There's not a sign that says anything. To me, we're talking about the National Bandmasters Hall of Fame. All of these band directors across the world over the years, when they're endowed or when they're inducted into a Hall of Fame, it's in Troy, Alabama. We don't promote it enough, and we should. But I'll say this, and this is the truth, if I've ever said the truth, and I should have said this when Coach was on the show yesterday. I thought he was a great guy, though. Don't you think he is great?
I was real impressed.
Yeah, well, Troy had not missed a beat, Mike, in our football coach.
We had Chip Lindsey. Coach Chip Lindsey was our guest yesterday.
But I wanted to tell him that at Troy, at Alabama, you got the football team, and here's the $1 million band down here to my lower right, as far as importance to the school or promotion of the school. Then at Auburn, it's the same way. Auburn football here and Auburn band down here. At Troy, you got football here and band right here as far as importance to the school. The band, and I'll repeat it over and over again, is just as important at Troy as it is as the football program is. The band program is that important to our university as far as exposure, as far as name recognition, the sound of the South,
it's one of the things Troy is known for.
And of course, it's one of the best marching bands in the country, and it's very important to our university. Not saying that football is not very, very important, but the band is very, very important. You put them together, you got a great Saturday afternoon of great pageantry, wouldn't you say? And of course, that band is playing before. Let me tell you what they do every football game. They start practicing sometimes as early as 8 o'clock.
Wow.
Then at 10 o'clock, they'll go out and have a few more, have a sandwich or
a few Bloody Marys?
No, they'll have a little snack around the quad, the new quad where the fountain is. That's the best move, and I'll tell you a story about that, too. The quad, the beautiful quad there, they practice and all that, and they start practicing. Then they'll 2 hours and 15 minutes before every game, the players are dropped off at the corner there of George Wallace and University Avenue, and they walk in the Trojan Walk to the stadium. Well, the band's been there already about an hour, so let's say on a Saturday, a Saturday for 6 o'clock game time, the band's there probably around 2:15 and starting to play. And they stay there until after the walk, and then they march to the stadium to get ready for their pregame. And I love their pregame. Their pregame lasts about an hour. Those kids put out about 3-4 hours. Now listen to this, counting their halftime performance and the performance during the game. And then after the game, they have a concert at the south end of the field where everybody moves to the south end of the field, and the Sound of the South has a concert that lasts between 30 minutes and an hour. And that area of that south end zone is full of people that came to hear the band. So about half of the people that come to the football games also came to hear the band.
And then at least one game a year, they invite bands from all over the state. So let's support our bands.
That is
I cannot imagine, I could not picture
Troy without that band.
Going to a Troy University football game and not having the band there. It's controversial.
And Mike, you love football as much as anybody, but you pay homage to the band when during the ball game.
Mike must.
Mike, are you still with us?
He had to run somewhere.
Well, I'll tell you what we're talking about. All right, Mike, are you on the line?
It's Will Matthews.
Will Matthews, won't you please come home? Is that right? Are you the lawyer, Will Matthews?
That's right.
Are you the guy that I saw on TV the other day at the Masters?
You didn't see me on TV.
We got Bill Rice Jr. with us, another old Troy guy, and we're talking about the great things that happened. Of course, we got Troy Fest coming this weekend, and that is one of the best around. Have you ever heard about Troy Fest much?
I have not. Of course, I'm a Dothan, so.
Well, I tell you what, if you like art, it is one of the great places to come to see some of the best artists in the country. They come here this weekend. It's called Troy Fest, and it's 2 days of a lot of activity in downtown Troy. Like you live in downtown Ozark, you got a square just like us. Is that right?
Oh yeah. Now I wonder if my cousin Fred Hollis is going to be there.
I don't know. Jerry Hollis has moved back to Troy. Do you know Jerry Hollis? Now, Fred Hollis, he's talking about Noel.
No, yeah, no.
Well, see, Noel, he comes sometimes, but we all know Noel, don't we?
Well, you can, because Jerry and Noel Hollis are cousins.
Do you know Jerry Hollis? He's an eye doctor. Used to live in Picayune, Mississippi, and of course he's been back over here 20, 25 years. Lived on Lake Martin. Jerry Hollis.
We're distant, very distant.
That's right. He built those peg houses. Have you ever heard of those peg houses at Lake Martin?
I have not. I'm not a Lake Martin person.
Oh, you're not. But what are you then?
I'm a Panama City people.
There's two types of people. There's Panama City Beach people and lake people.
Yeah, you live in that yellow house on the corner, don't you?
That's right. Yeah.
And of course.
Well, how was spring break this last spring break down at Panama City Beach, or did you go down there?
I go a lot now. I try to avoid it during spring break. Although nowadays spring break is about non-existent in Panama City.
What happened?
They banned beer on the beach.
Right.
And that killed the college crowd.
Where did all the college kids go after that?
Most of them go to Destin and down South Florida, but Destin has picked up a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you a little bit about it. It's a pretty smart move, to tell you the truth. And
it got too rowdy.
Mike Thomas, the mayor, and I were talking about recently. Of course, he has Thomas's Donuts and Mike's restaurant there on the Front Beach Road in Panama City. Great guy. But what they're putting the emphasis on now, Will, is how they used to have all those softball tournaments there right down the road at Frank Brown area is called Frank Brown. Where they're putting all their emphasis in now is on Little League baseball, soccer, and those sports, and they're bringing in teams from all over the country. They're building all kinds of hotels in that area to enhance, local baseball and softball and soccer. And teams coming in from everywhere, they stay there in those places. It's a family type deal.
Right.
These are all families. These are not beer drinkers, but they're family people that are going to buy places to stay and buy food to eat and buy gas to travel on, and then pay for hotel accommodations. He thinks it'll be 10 times a bigger thing because it lasts so much longer.
Yeah. Well, he might be right.
So all these travel teams, travel teams have got to be huge. You have your rec ball, like the Ozark's a good example, and Troy's a good example. They have their rec programs that are very good. But then after their rec programs, on the weekends, they have their, what you call travel teams. And they come from everywhere, and they flock into that area. There'll be hey, listen, there could be 10 to 12,000 kids playing ball per weekend. They're building more soccer fields and more places to play. And now they have a huge park in there for kids. We had an Easter egg hunt last Sunday there, or last Saturday. There were 10,000 people at that Easter egg hunt. They you know how many eggs they hid? 25,000 eggs.
Oh my goodness!
So I said, will my little girl be able to get an egg? He said there'll be eggs all over her, all around her. And sure enough, she came back with a bucket that had probably 25 or 30 eggs in it. Yeah. And she's 5 years old. But it's that place down there. They're getting smart. They're going much more family oriented. So now the families go down there instead of the college kids.
I'll start going back now that I know this.
I tell you what, Mike told me this, and I'm not going to mention everything, but there was an incident that happened 2 or 3 years ago, right in front of about 100 kids, and they watched while one guy performed an act on which was just I
heard about that.
He said after that happened, he said, I knew we were fixing to get away from this college stuff because it was a terrible thing that happened in front of 100 people.
And nobody did
it was an act in front of 100 people, and nobody did anything about it. And Mike said, of course, that he's not going to run next year, but he said the last thing that he did that was more important than anything was you take the beer away from these kids, they won't come down here. And that's what
he was right.
Mike has been involved in city politics down there for years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. He was on the council for years.
For years, yeah. And he's been mayor for at least 8 or 10.
And you bought, hey, wouldn't you like to have a dime for every donut you've ever bought from him?
Oh, I paid for that new section they put on the side that's open until 10 o'clock at night. I paid for that.
I'm not getting beer. Listen, I'm not going to knock the beer people because some of my best friends are beer people, and I think everybody can have a beer, whatever, but don't put it in the hands of 16-year-olds or 15-year-olds and or college kids that don't know how to act, and that's what happened. And let me tell you this, they ought to build a monument to Mike Thomas, because I'm thinking because he said once that little deal happened, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? You know what happened about 2 or 3 years ago.
It, but,
oh, well, the guy had sex in front of 100 people.
That's terrible.
Right there on the beach, broad daylight.
That's terrible.
That is, when it gets that bad, buddy, you can either get out, and that's what he has done. And the Lord's going to bless him, I promise you.
Well, different cities have gone through the same. Didn't Fort Lauderdale did the same thing?
They wanted them out of there.
At some point, you seems to be you want the money, and then you say no, it's not worth it. Leave, go somewhere else.
And now, of course, family atmosphere, playing ball. A lot of them are ball teams, and then everybody comes down on the 4th. The last big big group is finishing up this weekend. That's the Easter holidays, and so most of the spring break is over, and the Canadians are moving back to Canada, this month. March is usually late March, and of course April. A lot of them have already gone back, but now that also has changed the complexion. There are several things, Will, that you realize this too. First of all, back 25 years ago, we didn't have the Canadians that would come in and spend money in the off season. The deal now is that's hurt the beach worse than anything is all these school systems changing their time. Used to, Will, when you and I were in school, or when I was in school, on September the 1st was Labor Day, and after Labor Day,
started school.
You start the school. Well, now they're starting the 1st of August, so the beach is missing out on a whole month of August being a vacation time. Now the vacation time is the prime time is June and July. Everybody's going back to school in August, so it's really hurt the beach. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, certainly.
And of course, and now, thank goodness for the Canadians, they picked up some of that slack. You know, tens of thousands of Ontario tags you can see down there.
It's not just Canadians; it's anybody from the cold weather states.
Michigan, Indiana,
These people,
Wisconsin.
man, they lock up their houses for the whole winter. I don't blame them either.
And 231, and you know, you reap the benefits of 231 in Ozark, Will, like we do in Troy. Thank goodness that we're the best route to Disney World. You can go to 65. The Michigans, the Indianas, the Illinois, the Ohios catch on I-65.
Yeah.
And when they get to Montgomery, thank goodness they hook off I-65 to 85 to 231. And the map or the thing that you touch, the button you touch to guide you, you know what I'm talking about, has everybody going through Dothan to the Interstate 10, go 10 to 75, and you're at Disney World. Is that right?
Well, and it's always been told it's the quickest route to the beaches, and then if you really know the shortcut to the Destin and Seaside, you know, it's a question of do you go through Dothan or do you cut through Elba?
That's right. Now, see, I go through Elba, Sampson, what's my place down there?
That's the way to go to the Seaside. Or you go through Enterprise to go to Panama City
Beach.
Well,
you go through both. You know, like in Elba, I get on the highway that goes directly to Sampson. I cut Sampson in half. But what's that little community there? Not Ebro. The Ebro is on down further. The first Florida town is, what's the name of it? Mike, where are you? And now we're going from Ozark. You'll go through, which way will you go to the beach?
I just go to Hartford, get on 167.
Yeah, so you go the same way. A lot of the people leave here and go to, instead of going to Elba, where you got the fork to go to Elba to the right, you go straight to Enterprise. And there's several ways around Enterprise now. And then you go to Hartford, like you do from Ozark, and then cut across and go on down through what's the first little town there? Oh gosh.
Where you got Bonifay.
How long does it take you to get to the beach, Will?
Well, I live in Dothan. It takes me an hour and 20 minutes.
God.
Hour and 20 minutes. And from Dothan,
an hour and 20 minutes from some of the prettiest beaches in the world.
You'll go through Graceful if you're in Dothan, won't you? Is that right?
Do what now?
Do you go through Graceful to the beach, or where do you go?
No, I go down to Slocum and then get on 167.
All right, and of course, and that's at Hartford. Is that right?
Yeah.
And if you'll notice, they're very good highways, and you don't see a lot of traffic. It's amazing that. What is the things that you guide you on the car?
The GPS? Or?
Yeah, whatever you call those things that guide you. Evidently, they haven't found out about the route through Elba and Sampson, evidently, because you don't see near the traffic.
Well, it's a huge economic matter for these towns that however these people are routed, that they come through your town.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be interesting to do some kind of survey and see how much money has been left in Pike County from people going to and coming back from the beaches.
You know, the thing we have in common, Will, we got a missile pointed at both of us. You know that, don't you?
Do what now?
One of the things we have in common, we have a missile pointed at both of us. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Don't you think there's a missile pointed at Fort Rucker and a missile pointed at Troy, where the missile plants builds all these missiles?
Lockheed Martin.
Martin.
The plant manager
Troy,
told me one time at a Civic Club meeting, I asked him that question. This was 20 years ago. And he said, "Oh yeah." I said, "Well, Lockheed, we're a target."
Yeah, and you know they make the most important missiles there. The defense missile is made there, and several others. I can't tell you everything, but it's pretty big, important.
You know, that's why I take this all of this rhetoric and arguing with the Russians seriously. I don't laugh about it. because we are one of the targets. And if Lockheed Martin isn't, Fort Rucker certainly is, Maxwell Air Force Base is.
Yeah, that's right.
So if our leaders screw all this up, we're going to be melted one day.
Let's just say this: there's no question that there's a rocket probably forecast for the for the missile plant, because that is a huge.
They make about 4 or 5 weapons there
exactly
that are used every day.
And the warhead is actually there. Did you know that?
You've told me that. I'd never heard that.
I have been told that, and of course, that'll make you shiver a little bit, And of course, those are good. We're proud of that industry. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Of course, it really provides a lot of jobs for a lot of people, and I'm proud that it's located north of Troy. And of course, anytime the federal government is involved, there's a chance that it'll either grow or at one time on down the future, they might not find it as important as it was before. But being from a town like Ozark, you've been around military all your life, haven't you, Will?
Oh yeah, Fort Rucker dried up. Ozark, you could put the dirt on it.
Really?
And then of course, now it used to be 18,000 troops lived at Fort Rucker, but now it's more than that, isn't it?
It's 28,000 now.
28 live actually inside the gates of Fort Rucker.
They're not living inside the gate, but actually are stationed there. A lot of the officers.
You would think that
live in Enterprise. Around the outside.
See, now you would think the housing market would be really competitive in Enterprise, Ozark, and Daleville. Where do all of them live?
Now, most of them live in Enterprise.
Why is that?
I don't know, but Enterprise has got 40-something thousand people now.
Well, I know it's really fast growing, and Rucker evidently has been fast growing. Of course, it is the helicopter capital of the world. Isn't that right? Will, why don't you become a helicopter mechanic? Somebody told me that they pay them $80 to $100 an hour. Is that right?
They get paid very well, but Enterprise is building.
I'm being facetious. I don't know really.
Everybody else is not.
Well, that big, fine, university-looking high school had a lot to do with it, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, they've got excellent public schools in Enterprise.
But the Whaley Company right here in Troy built a beautiful Carroll High School named after your grandfather. Is that right?
Yeah, Ozark's got a wonderful school.
Yeah, Will, you would be considered old Ozark. Is that right? Your family?
I was born and raised in Ozark, yes.
And you were one of those Matthews at Matthews Stadium. Is that right?
No, my dad came from Memphis. Dr. Matthews is not related to me.
All right, your dad came from Memphis. He was a former University of Tennessee cheerleader. He knew General Neyland personally, didn't he?
Yeah, he was the head cheerleader at UT.
Yeah. Wow. But let me ask you this. Was he an Alabama fan or a Tennessee fan?
Oh, he was a Tennessee fan, 100%.
I mean, when they played each other, he wanted everybody in Ozark didn't want to see him coming if they lost, did they?
He was a Vanderbilt basketball fan.
Yeah.
And he had 10 season tickets to Vanderbilt all his life.
Now, how are you kin to Warren Matthews?
He's my brother. Yeah.
Oh, well, I know who I'm talking to now. Warren and I were pledge brothers at Sigma News at Alabama. You tell him I said hello.
Yeah, he's big old tall. He's a big tall guy, isn't he?
He's one of my favorite people.
How tall is he, Will?
He's 6'5". He's a big guy.
He's good.
If y'all went out today, who would win?
You mean in golf?
Yeah, well, we're not going to. Now, you're rated the third, you're rated number 5 in the world in dominoes. I'm talking about golf.
Yeah, I beat him. He can't beat me in golf.
But he hits it 300 yards, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he doesn't know where it's going.
And he lives in Greenville, Alabama. Is that right?
That's right. His offices are in Mobile and Montgomery.
Yeah.
I used to see him in Montgomery. He's done some legal work for me. And he's real good friends with John Longshore, who everybody knows from his radio show and appearances on TV8.
No, Longshore, well, I'll tell you a funny story about Longshore. Longshore and I were in Warren quit about 30 years ago.
You mean he let you in his wedding?
Well, he had to. But anyway, he got married in Greenville, Alabama, where his wife his wife's parents, her daddy owned the hospital over there.
Well, you know, Bob James's son was in the same. He lives in Greenville, and his wife's from Greenville.
Yeah, but anyway, they got married when Alabama was playing Tennessee.
Oh God!
Amazing.
Man, that is cruel.
Hey, right during the game too, and Longshore had some kind of thing in his ear. I said, "What you got in your ear?" He said, "I'm listening to the game."
Yeah, oh yeah. My daughter got married in Birmingham on the same time that Troy was beating LSU, something like 34-7 at the time.
You know what, Will? My late uncle Bobby Rice was director of athletic facilities for Alabama and the biggest Alabama fan in the world. His daughter got married in the Alabama-Florida game, the game where Sean, what's his name, scored and Alabama beat back during the Dubose era in 1999 when Alabama upset Florida down there.
Yeah.
So go figure, why would the daughter of the biggest Alabama fan in the world get married on a game day so big?
But let me tell you where she went to college. She went to Wake Forest. You know, isn't that right?
Yeah.
She went to Wake Forest, the Yuppies. Is that right?
That's one of the
That's
small.
very good school.
They only have like 6,000 students.
Yeah,
at Wake Forest.
it's one of the most prestigious schools in the country.
But yeah, we've all got those stories of people who get married on
Yeah.
college football
Yeah.
Saturday.
Well, where do the rich go to school? They go to Virginia. They go to Vanderbilt. They go to Wake Forest. They go to where do they all go?
They go to Duke.
They go to Rice.
In the South,
SMU.
you've only got one or two. You've got Duke and Vandy in the South, and Tulane used to be prominent, but it's
Yeah. Well, you know, Tulane, yeah. But it's still a great school, you know, but it's amazing. Of course, now Ole Miss is a yuppie school too, isn't it? A lot of Birmingham kids go to Ole Miss, don't they?
My daughter went to law school at Ole Miss.
Uh-huh. And of course, you know, it's another great school.
A lot of people from Montgomery have gone to Ole Miss.
Exactly.
My sister-in-law graduated from Ole Miss.
But, you know, and a lot of these schools, you take Davidson, that's a big school up in the Carolina. They probably don't have 2,000 or 3,000 students, you know, but, you know, look what they've done, you know. We got Will Matthews on one end. We got Bill Rice Jr. on this end, and we're talking a little bit about everything. I hope that you find this interesting because we
bounced around.
We bounced around a little bit, but we had a lot of fun. Of course, I want to remind you again that Pike Liberal plays in the second round of the state playoffs against Fort Dale out of Greenville, so that's going to be a big rivalry. That's at 4:30, but you can watch it live right here on Troy Cable. And on Facebook, Will, you're going out to over 1 billion people that watch us every morning on Facebook.
Wow.
You know, I've been a little facetious, but they could if they wanted to.
No, they banned us. We're too controversial.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, too controversial. And get involved in this military stuff, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know pretty much what I'm talking about. I just know we got a missile base just north of Troy, which is one of the largest in the world. And then we've got one a helicopter base in Ozark, which is about 30 minutes south of us. You know the bad thing about that way times are now, Will, I used to could drive through Fort Rucker on my way to, you know, south, but now they are on my way to actually to Enterprise or to Dothan. You could go through the base, but they won't let you do it anymore. Have you ever found that out?
Oh, I think he said he had to go.
Okay, all right.
He probably had to get back and do some lawyering.
But see, what I'm saying, it would be a huge shortcut for Ozark people to go through the base at Rucker to get to Enterprise and go south from there.
Security
But
is
now they
so
don't
tight.
like
Well,
that.
it's the same way at Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery.
Yeah. And I wouldn't doubt that one day the highway that goes to the base here in Troy would probably going to eventually be closed just to people that work there or whatever. Wouldn't you think so? You know, why would what? I mean, the only people that really are significant, very few people live on that road, and it'd be, you know, you could understand.
You know what I want to use that property for? You know, I'm an idea man. two things would go great up. I'm talking about North Pike County, the Rolling Hills area.
Exactly, beautiful.
Off of 231. Some, maybe Bronner with the Robert Trent Jones courses could build a beautiful golf course up there.
No question about it.
And the other thing I think you could have up there is an outdoor amphitheater with a pretty lodge that would seat about 8,000 or 9,000. And I think you could get some really big acts that would come and do concerts there and draw from Fort Rucker, Troy University, Auburn, Montgomery.
Have you ever been to any Keith Rowland's parties? Have you ever, you know where Keith Rowland lives? Right there in Orion?
No, but I know.
Well, I need to carry you up there because that's one of the most fabulous views from that hill, from his house. And
so you can't you picture an amphitheater like they have Oak Mountain Amphitheater in Birmingham, and or some kind of golf course?
Yeah. And then hunting is just an unbelievable hunting area. But Keith's folks, he was born and raised on that hill there. And he's got a deck that he can climb up to in his house and see the most beautiful sunset.
Well, I want to go see. I love Keith.
I will. You would really love it.
His sister Marie was in my carpool.
A beautiful girl too.
She grew up three houses up from me. Yeah, beautiful.
And she lives in Titletown, Georgia. You know where that is, don't you?
I knew she's from Georgia. Of course,
Valdosta,
Georgia.
Her husband's an attorney down in Valdosta, Georgia. But of course, her mother was just one of the most beautiful, sweetest people in the world. Of course, she was my third grade teacher.
She was everybody's third grade teacher, I think.
And wasn't she beautiful?
Miss Rowland, sweet lady.
No question about it. We, of course, I apologize that we sort of get carried on about what happened to us and all the things here in Troy and Pike County. I hope you found this interesting. And of course, we love to talk about
history,
our heritage and whatever. And of course,
I think that newcomers to the area, they say, "What are they talking about?" I hope they have some curiosity about what the town and area was like before they got here. So maybe it'll be interesting.
Yeah. There's going to be some big baseball games, and we were talking about Pike Liberal Arts earlier. Morgan Academy of Selma, their baseball team is 25-0, and they play host to Macon East, who is 27-11. Boy, unless Morgan's got some great pitching, they're going to be in trouble here. But wouldn't that be something? 25-0. Bessemer Academy out of Tuscaloosa, 27-10 against Lee Scott out of Opelika, Auburn. That game is also on Thursday.
We could have asked.
They're 20-9.
Has a team ever gone undefeated throughout an entire baseball season? I guess they have.
I don't think so, unless you want to call and ask your. I love this phone. One of my things I like is that I find interesting is old movie stars, not present day movie stars, but old movie stars. And this Facebook, you can do so many things on it, but one of them is find out things about it. What old movie star would you like to find out about?
I liked. We're talking about military defense. I like Gregory Peck in the movie 12 O'Clock High.
Yeah, 12 O'Clock High. Yeah, exactly.
That's an underrated movie about war.
I've tried to get it, and I'm having trouble. Sometimes I pick this thing up, and
although I've also been paying attention to Mr. Peck recently. I've been studying a little of the making of the movie To Kill a Mockingbird, and studying up on Harper Lee.
Bob Hope.
Did you accidentally summon me?
Oh, okay. Look here. You picked it up. It said, recently I've been studying a little of the making of the movie To Kill a Mockingbird. You picked it up on my phone. Let's see if we can find this. Bob Hope. Of course, Bob Hope, I always found him to be Bob Hope.
He was good buddies with Coach Bryant.
I found this on the web.
Bob Hope, okay. I thought it would have it on there, but it didn't.
Everybody loves Bob Hope, and he was a great patriot, and he went and entertained the troops everywhere. But I got to say that I never found him particularly funny.
Really? Well,
I liked him as his personality.
And
but
he had, his personality. He was a classy guy. There's no question about that. But it's amazing what you can find on your sport. You said Gregory Peck, and he was one of the great actors of all time. And
I know why I was studying To Kill a Mockingbird. I've been studying.
Because they're from Troy. Some of those folks are from Troy. The McLeods from Troy were related to
Truman Capote.
Truman Capote.
Hank was supposedly related to Truman Capote. But I've been studying great books that were adapted into movies, such as The Godfather.
Oh, I love The Godfather.
Such as Gone with the Wind, such as To Kill a Mockingbird, and they were all very, very faithful to the novels for the most part.
It gives you a huge write-up on Bob Hope in this telephone, and I tell you, it's very interesting, to read this kind of information. Of course, he actually was born in England, and he came over and became such a big-time movie star or comedian or whatever. You're right. A lot of his stuff was sort of candid. It was not.
Well, he must have had an army of writers writing for him.
Exactly. And one of my favorite, comedians, and I just used to laugh and laugh and laugh, is Don Rickles. Boy, I mean, how he would get on somebody, and especially when he used to be on
Dean Martin show.
Yeah, Dean Martin show, but not just Dean Martin show, but the late night shows.
Johnny Carson
and people like that, and he'd get on there with Frank Sinatra, and he'd make the hair stand up. Some of the things he would say, but he's gone now. And
somebody made an interesting point
but
about.
One of my favorite comedian was I Don't Get Any Respect.
Dangerfield.
Dangerfield. I love Roger. Dangerfield, and he was, his big thing was I don't get any respect. Is that right?
Yeah, and he got into stand-up comedy late in his life. He was middle-aged when he broke it big. I'd recommend a good book for people that are interested in nonfiction. Read Steve Martin's autobiography. It's called Born Standing Up. And it tells how he got into the business and became a stand-up comedy.
And I love it.
Now, he wrote it himself. He's very smart. It's more cerebral than you would think. It's not silly. But I found that book fascinating. These people become overnight stars, but, it took them 15 years to become overnight stars.
You said that about Bob Hope, and it says here, a lot of people didn't think he was funny, but it was his it was just candid, sort of a yuppie type, he could, first-hand view of a movie star or whatever,
I remember him from his holiday shows where he would have the AP All-American team.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. Of course, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come right back. This is Today in L.A.
Troy Cable Security makes it easy to stay aware and stay in control of your home wherever you are. User-friendly interface allows easy navigation for lights, locks thermostat, video, and garage doors. Never worry about leaving your garage door open or the front door unlocked. Your mobile app can send alerts to your phone for alarm and no alarm events. Know when your children arrive home from school with video response. Make sure your home is powered by Troy Cable Security for ultimate access, awareness, and protection.
When you are handed the key to a new Bill Jackson Chevrolet Buick or GMC, rev up your imagination. Think of all the places you can go in some of the most stylish, best quality cars available on the market today. Feel confident driving vehicles with superb dependability and safety ratings. And smile. You saved a ton of money because you bought at Bill Jackson. Let the only thing holding you back be the end of the road. A Bill Jackson Chevrolet Buick GMC vehicle will not only change your life, it saves you money like nowhere else.
Tori Dunn from Dixie Trails. You get your truck washed here?
I sure did.
Millie Johnson. I know you're not bringing them cow trucks over here.
I do, and they're like me when I leave.
Loretta, what are you doing?
Getting my car detailed.
At Trojan Detail, we do it all.
If you've had an accident or just want a new look for your vehicle, come see us at Troy Paint and Body, where we do it right the first time. Our staff has more than 100 years combined experience and can handle repairs and paint work on any make or model. We also offer a lifetime guarantee as long as you own your vehicle. Our 24-hour towing service means we're here when you need us. Troy Paint and Body, where we may meet by accident, but you'll be glad we did. So come see us at Troy Paint and Body, located on South Brundage Street in Troy beside the post office.
Back to our show, brought to you by Grocery Advantage, our newest grocery store on South Grundy Street, cost plus 10%. Go there. I promise you, you'll see a lot of bargains. And, of course, their meat department and poultry department and fruits and vegetables, fresh daily at Grocery Advantage. They've got a store also in Enterprise. I like these people. This is a great store to shop. Of course, tomorrow we'll be live from downtown Troy and the getting ready for the annual Troy Fest arts show in honor of Gene Lake, the great Gene Lake, who was an outstanding, brilliant artist here in Pike County for years. And for the last 25 or 30 years, we've had this one of the top, I would say, one of the top
arts festivals
in the state of Alabama.
Well, we were just talking about the beaches and how they had gotten away from being family destinations at Panama City Beach. But you talk about the perfect destination to take the whole family, Troy Fest.
No question about it. And it's going to be fun for...
bring your recliner.
That's right.
Your lawn chair.
And plan to eat downtown. Their food, they're going to have 13 food vendors, and the food will be outstanding.
Plus the places already on the square that have fantastic food.
Hey, tell us about those donuts. I mean, those cinnamon rolls yesterday.
Outstanding.
What's the name of it? The
Dulce or
yeah, and more the coffee.
You know, I had never been in there, and it was just blown away by the decor and the ambiance and the food.
There it is, right there. That cinnamon roll, and it is a woman for you. And I'm about one.
Jamie, the owner, said that he's gearing up. He knows he's going to have a lot of business today and tomorrow.
Yeah, I might have to run by there today. Of course, we will be coming to you live from downtown Troy, preparing, and of course.
And good luck to all of our baseball and softball teams in the playoffs.
Exactly, and we'll be doing that live at 8:30. But in the morning, 7 o'clock start, we'll be live from downtown Troy like we do every year. Morgan Drinkard and her people, and of course maybe Rob. Hopefully we can catch Rob, who puts this on. Rob Drinkard does a wonderful job. Her husband and wife team leads the pack with Troy Fest every year, and it's going to be a fun time. Expect 15,000 visitors to Troy this weekend on Saturday and Sunday. You can expect at least that many people coming to Troy Fest, and it's the place to be. And of course, we got also baseball action this weekend with the Trojans of Troy, and we've got Charles Henderson baseball this weekend. That's going to be a big game between Charles Henderson and Bibb County. They're going to Bibb County. It's a 5 o'clock start on Friday. Best 2 out of 3, and hopefully the Trojans can win there and move on. And then, of course, as we mentioned, live from our studios, or live from Butch Austin Field on the campus of Pike Liberal Arts School, where the Patriots are getting ready to do battle with Fort Dale.
Does it have Pike Liberal Arts record? What is Pike Liberal Arts?
They're 20-10, and of course they're coached by Alan Ponder. They do a great job. They're the defending 3A champions, big school champions in the Alabama Independent School. So it should be some good baseball starting here in Troy this afternoon at 4:30. If you can't go, we're bringing it to you live right here on Channel 2 on your Troy cable stations. For people watching us from all across the world, we are today in L.A. That's Lower Alabama. That's not Los Angeles, California. That's today in Lower Alabama.
But we're people in L.A., California are watching this right now, I'm sure.
Yeah,
by the hundreds of thousands or millions.
No question about it. And of course, read your messenger, because a lot of information comes with it. And tomorrow's messenger will have a rundown of the Troy Fest activities, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, enjoy these outstanding. Want to congratulate two young men. Two brothers have won scholarships. Pike Liberal Arts seniors Trevor Barron and his twin brother Clay Barron have been awarded the Dixie Boys Baseball Scholarships. Congratulations to them. And then, of course, the Trojans of Troy University back on the playing field this weekend. And, of course, we'll be excited about keeping up with all of that. And look forward to seeing you from downtown Troy now Downtown Troy in the morning is today in LA. See you then.